Hello, welcome to Captain Dorge's Armory. This is Captain Dorja. Right now, you can see the IS-6 Soviet Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank sitting in my garage. Now, the IS-6 is a really good tank. It's not the only Tier 8 Soviet heavy tank, premium heavy tank. There's also the KV-5, which I also have, and I also enjoy the KV-5. But I've had the KV-5 quite a bit longer. I've played quite a few more battles in it, and so I don't. Recently, I've been driving the IS-6 a lot more, just kind of change of pace. I drive the Type 59 a ton, and even that thing requires a change of pace at times. So we're going to take a quick look at the IS-6, and then we'll get into battle. And I know I say quick look all the time, and it ends up being like 10 minutes, so I'll try and keep this a little shorter. First thing that I want to say is the IS-6 is really fun to play. It's a great tank. I like it a lot. I would never have gotten it except that I saw Quickie Baby and Jingles playing on live streams with it and just destroying. And I'll say that I thought the exact same thing as Jingles. Jingles looked at this in the tech tree and said, what a garbage tank. 100mm armor, 150mm turret, and a crappy gun. Who the hell would want to drive this? That was my thoughts exactly. And I think I played it on the test server and was like, wow, this tank's actually really good. Eventually I just said, screw it, I'm buying this. And a big reason of why this thing's good is because I run my IS-4 crew in it. I honestly don't really enjoy driving my IS-4 that much. I drive it every now and then. I prefer the IS-7. But my IS-4 crew has just gone from being like mediocre to really awesome since I started putting them in here. And one thing that's great about that is crew skills for the IS-4 are actually really compatible with crew skills for the IS-6. So you can see my commander has repairs and 6th sense at 100%. He's working on recon. It's a little more view range, always good, help you detect guys in cover, stuff like that. My gunner has repairs and camouflage at 100%. I chose to put camouflage on just because even though only with a few crew members with camouflage, it doesn't have that large of an impact, but it will have an impact, and I just want to get, as I'm getting more into Clan Wars, I'm finding out that camouflage is something that you're gonna want it on almost every tank that you might ever take into Clan Wars, even if you would in a pub match would say there's no reason to have camo on that. In Clan Wars, it can make a big deal, so I'm trying to train camo on more of my tanks. My driver, he has 100% repairs, 100% off-road driving, and he's working on clutch braking right now. So I think when clutch braking gets up, that'll be really awesome. Then I'll have the bonus skill at driving on all terrains just from off-road driving added to bonus turning speed from clutch braking. That's going to be, I think, pretty epic. My loader, he has 100% repairs as well, 100% safe stowage, and camouflage. So those are my crew skills. Smooth ride for this tank would probably be pretty good. The aim time for the gun is really long, but I just thought that off-road driving and clutch braking were overall better choices. Since this tank is pretty maneuverable, but it doesn't turn very well, so I thought clutch braking was probably better, and kind of the same thing for the IS-4. Now, we'll take a quick look at my rig setup. Basically, this has kind of become my holy trinity of rigs. Just about any tank that'll fit them, I fit this setup. Gun rammer, gun laying drive, or not gun laying drive, but vertical stabilizers, and improved ventilation. And you do that for a number of reasons. First of all, tanks exist to do damage. Gun rammer, more damage. That's a no-brainer. Vertical stabilizer is a huge one. It gives you a plus 20% to accuracy during movement and turret rotation. Plus also with snapshot on my gunner, that will reduce the size of the aiming circle even more. So that's good. And the reason why that's so good is because 3.4 second aiming time on this gun is monstrously long, but the V-stab knocks that down by 20% right away, and snapshot knocks it down even more, allowing me to aim the gun faster and fire more accurately, quicker. We'll take a look at gun stats in a minute. Vents. Vents are crucial on pretty much every tank, and I've started putting them on almost every tank now because they give you 5% to all your crew skills, which is really, really good. So And that is literally every crew skill. Like anything where crew skill plays into it, vents make it 5% better. So it's not just that my driver gets 5% better clutch braking because that's what he's training. He gets 5% better repair. He gets 5% better off-road driving. He gets 5% better at making the tank accelerate. He gets 5% better at making the tank turn. Like literally everything. Same thing for the commander, gunner, loader, radio operator, everything. Everything that your tank crew does, better. So it's a really good skill. I will hasten to point out before we talk about gun stats that on this tank I do carry a stock of premium shells, and it's actually quite a large stock, but I've been thinking about shrinking it down to only 5. We'll talk about that in just a second. So we're going to look at the gun, because this tank is it's a close range brawling heavy tank. If I were to my own classification system that I think of things with in my mind is kind of weird. But what I think of is I call this an armor gun tank, and what I mean by that is that the gun and the armor make it what it is. As a, kind of an example of what I mean by that, you would say that the T-34, it's a gun tank, because without the gun of the T-34 would suck. The M103. The M103 is a gun tank. Its gun is the standout feature on it. This is a gun armor tank. Its gun and its armor are the standout features. Kind of the oxymoron with the gun is that while its gun is great and it's a standout feature of the tank, it's also horrible at the same time. So we'll get onto that right now. It's the 120 millimeter D30 gun. Basically, the only difference between this and the ubiquitous Soviet 122mm D25 or D2/5 is that this is unique to the IS-6. It's got 175mm penetration, just like all the other ones, 390 damage, just like all the other ones, .46 accuracy, which is absolutely terrible, just like all the other ones, 3.4 second aiming time, which is absolutely terrible, just like all the other ones. So basically, your damage is awesome, your penetration is bad, your accuracy is awful, your aiming time is horrible. But the rate of fire on the IS-6 is phenomenal, 5.13 rounds per minute. Now, I just want to compare that real quick to the KV-1S and to the IS. The KV-1S, 3.75 rounds per minute. The IS, 4.88. And since I have a KV3 sitting right here, 4.88. So you have about an additional shot every 3 minutes, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're in a prolonged fight, that's a pretty big deal. The rate of fire for a gun like this is actually pretty good. It gives this tank pretty high damage potential, lets you really dish it out. Even though the penetration is crap, the accuracy and the aiming time are crap, the idea, like with many other Soviet tanks, is you get this thing so close that accuracy doesn't matter because you're just firing straight at them from 2 inches away, and aiming time doesn't matter because you don't need to aim because their tank fills the entire aiming circle. Now, the terrible penetration means that when you fight Tier 9s and even some of the Tier 8 heavies, you're going to be in a tough spot. So that's why I have the premium ammo, but like I said earlier, I've been thinking about cutting my supply down from 7 down to 5, or maybe even 4, because a lot of the things that you can't penetrate with a standard AP round frontally, you can't pen them with premium either. It's only got 217mm pen. So I've been thinking about cutting down my premium ammo supply because I only have 21 shots of AP, and I have ran out of AP rounds before and had to switch to the APCR when I did not want to. So I might cut this stock APCR down to about 5 or 4 shells just to get more standard AP. So that's kind of the good and bads of the gun. I'll mention real quickly the goods and bads of the armor, and then we'll get her into battle. The first good thing about the armor is that even though it's only 100 millimeters thick, it is ridiculously well sloped. Look at the slope on that front plate. Look at the slope on that cheek plate. Even the side is well sloped. Even the rear, which is only 60 millimeters thick, is well sloped. So very well sloped armor on this tank. With the turret, it's only 150 on the front and sides, and the gun mantlet basically doesn't make it any thicker. So your turret armor is actually pretty bad, and because of the shape of the turret, your turret armor is mostly flat. So a lot of the times, if you run into somebody shooting a high-pen gun, they'll just fire at your turret because it's more likely to penetrate than it is when you shoot the hull. Even some things with slightly less penetration, like maybe a T-32 with only about 200 millimeters, they might actually be better off going for your turret than going for your hull. Now the back of the turret is only 100 millimeters and it's flat, so it's a huge weak spot, but it's the back of the turret. This thing's an assault tank. It's going front into the enemy. If they're shooting you in the back of the turret, you're screwed anyway. Some weaknesses of this tank's armor is, first of all, the lower plate. The lower plate is small and pretty well angled, so it doesn't get shot that often. Big weakness right here, the driver's hatch. That's a pretty large weakness of this tank. Also, these hatches, they're small, but you can hit them. Those are weak points. When you can fire down on this thing from, say, the hill on mines or the cliff on the cliff map, if you can fire down into this thing's turret, you'll go in with pretty much any gun in the game. The other thing about this tank's armor that's not ideal is because of the shape of it. I'm not very good at angling it. I find that I tend to over-angle. I'll go something like this, and that makes this, so if an enemy's like over here, that makes this front plate hard to penetrate, and it makes this side armor hard to penetrate, but it flattens out this cheek plate, and they just shoot through that. So I think the optimum angle for this tank is something like this much. It just gets you a little bit more effective angling on your front plate without flattening out your cheek plate, and it angles up your side armor. Makes this tank really bouncy, very bouncy. It's very similar to the IS-4 armor layout. So if you're familiar with the IS-4 armor and are able to make that shine, then the IS-6 shouldn't be that much of a challenge for you. I tend to over-angle with it though, so sometimes I don't do quite as well as I like. Now, lastly, before I jump into battle, I just want to say that one thing that drives me crazy about this tank is running into people that I know can't pen me and having them pen me shot after shot after shot. Thank you so much, Wargaming, for premium ammo for credits. Now, a little bit hypocritical saying that with this, but since my penetration only goes up from 175 to 217, my premium ammo is not even very good. But on a tank like a Super Pershing, which gets 90 millimeters of bonus penetration, it's absolutely crap. Now, just again, hypocrisy meter, I carry premium shells in my Super Pershing. So yeah, I'm a hypocrite, but I feel dirty when I use that ammo. So, the garage portion has gone on much longer than I intended. Let's get this sucker into battle and see how it performs. Well, here we are in a standard battle on mines with the IS-6 Tier 8 premium Soviet heavy tank, one of two. This battle is, well, it was a pretty frustrating battle that ended up being really awesome. And the first frustrating thing about it is right away, RSU-5 starts complaining about matchmaker for artillery. To sum it up, boo-hoo. If you play artillery and you whine about the matchmaker, cry me a river, build me a bridge, and while you're on your way over it, please fall off the bridge and drown in your own tears. That is all. Now, continuing. When I play heavy tanks on this match, mostly what I do is I go and I defend the town or attack the road. Because I've seen way too many matches on mines where everyone goes for the island or the hill and the town is left completely open. And then the entire enemy team pushes the town and we lose. Or, conversely, we leave the town totally open and one medium tank breaks through, kills our artillery, and then sweeps in, attacks the hill from behind, and everything falls apart. So I've made it a point that I almost always go to the town here. And that's a good thing to do with something like an IS-6, because the IS-6 is a close-range, brawling heavy. and doesn't get much closer than around this corner. So I'm not alone. With me, I've got a Type 59, a Jag Panther who's already almost dead, a T-32 who has the 105 with the stock turret, and a T-34-85. Now right here, I'm really worried about this Type 59 a lot because all he's got against him is another 59 and a Jag Panther that's already just about dead. So I don't want that Type being able to kill these two guys and breaking down, basically unhinging my flank and ability to cover this corner. So I'm focusing on him right now. And the IS-6's gun does have the penetration to get through the front hull of the Type 59, but it's not a guaranteed penetration. So the two side hits that I put into him were really, really well. Really helpful, and I managed to do almost 700 damage just to him. Now quickly pausing, you can see that the enemy is opposing us on this corner very heavily. Sniping from the back, they have an ACMLE 1946. That's a very dangerous tank destroyer. They have, in this blob here, a Lerva, a Tiger II, an IS, and a T-69. 3 dangerous heavies and a dangerous medium. Providing supporting fire from behind and in cover, there's the T-34. That is a dangerous group of enemies. Now, as the match progresses, some of their danger will be revealed to be not quite as serious as I thought. But still, this is a large force against quite a small one. 2 Tier 8 heavies and a Tier 6 medium. And one of the Tier 8 heavies has a bad penetration gun. The other has a medium penetration gun and no armor. And our medium is only a Tier 6. So we're very outgunned and outnumbered. I've been trying to focus down the T-34 because the T-34's extreme high penetration gun is very dangerous to an IS-6. The IS-6 doesn't live and die by the performance of its armor like many other tanks in this game, but the performance of its armor is pretty good. Right there, you get a look at the performance of the gun, which is at times pretty bad. Fully aimed shot, Type 59 at about 120 meters. Shot goes wide, and I hit a building. But the gun reloads quick, so I reload and finish the Type. Now the enemy's pushing the corner pretty hard, and this is where some of the threat of the enemies is revealed as not actually that threatening. Look at the way the Lerva and the Tiger II especially are rounding that corner. The IS as well, but to a lesser degree. The armor on the Lerva and the Tiger II is basically non-existent on the sides. I'm going to pause again to look at what they're doing. They're approaching around this corner exactly side on to me. The reason why they can do that, the reason why they're doing that, is it exposes them for a shorter amount of time, allowing them to quickly reverse and drive forward in and out of cover. But the reason why that's really stupid is they may only be exposed for a short time, but the way they're exposing themselves, they are completely 100% vulnerable. In effect, what they're trying to do is they're trying to enhance their protection by exposing themselves for a shorter amount of time. But what they're accomplishing is, by enhancing their protection, by exposing themselves for a shorter amount of time, they're making time not even matter because they're removing all of their protection. And there's no reason to do it. If that Tiger II was angled like this, facing along this line, he could round that corner being very effectively angled against my gun, and I would find it almost impossible to penetrate without using premium shells. So the Lerva could do the same thing. It wouldn't matter as much for the IS because he's just not as well armored, or the T-34. The hull armor on both of those tanks is not enough to really be a problem for this gun. But the Tiger II and the Lerva could have tanked a lot of damage by just not playing like scrubs, basically. Now, the other thing I say about the lowered threat of these tanks coming around the corner is this Tiger II is a completely stock. He's got the stock turret, which has very poor armor. And we'll see later that he has the 88 millimeter L71, which on a tier 8 medium is a good gun. On a tier 7, it's a really good gun, even on a tier 7 heavy. But on a tier 8 heavy, it lacks penetration and alpha damage. So right there, even though the Tiger II was giving me juicy side armor, his turret side armor is even more juicy, and I put a 460 damage hit into him. Now this is the first place where I take any damage. The T-34 gets a good hit into me. The Tiger II gets a 223 damage hit. That cries of the 88. And the Lerva puts 346 into me. That's typical for his 105mm gun. So in a matter of about 20 seconds, I went from full health to 500 health. At this point, this is where everyone starts playing a lot more defensively. I'm on low health. The T-32 is on low health. And everyone except the T-34 on their side is on low health. And if you look at the map, you can see something interesting. We had a lot of tanks trying to push the middle. Not a lot, but we had about 4 or 5. They're all dead. The only thing there is an IS-152, Spirit 1, who has actually not pushed the middle. He's pushed through here, and he's now coming back up the middle. He's on 4 kills right now. Now, the enemy's finally just grown a pair of balls and they've just charged around the corner. The T-34 had enough health to be able to tank me and the T-32, and we've both been killed. So at this point, I'm convinced that my all-or-nothing defense is going to get me precisely nothing. Because the enemy's just broken through with a Lerva T-34, Tiger II, ACM LE-46, and T-69. And to oppose them, we have a Jackson, who is now dead. The 2 ISs have finally overcome the resistance on the island and are making a belated push. And this is a thing that frustrates me a lot about World of Tanks. In a situation like this, there should be precisely 0 players on my team who are currently attacking the enemy base. Every combatant on the enemy team is about to roll into our base, and every combatant on the enemy team is closer to our base than any combatants on our team are to their base. That means we can't get to their base first, which means we cannot cap. And if we do cap, the ISU's not going to cap, so the only things we can cap with are the 2 ISs. The enemy's pushing 5 tanks into our capture circle. That means they'll be triple capping with 2 backup cappers against now 1 capping IS. So, in these kind of situations, it is not a good idea to capture the base. It's not the way to win. The only way to win is to mount a defense. You've got to get back to your base, redeploy, and defend. Now the ISU, Spirit 1, is doing a really good job. He's got himself up to 7 kills, and in conjunction with our artillery, Spirit 1 has basically destroyed the enemy attack. Now, I don't think Spirit 1 would have been successful in his defense if not for, 1, the good play by the SU-8. He helped with the defense. And more importantly, my defense of the corner, because no one got around that corner with over 200 health. And at this point, the match is over. So Spirit 1, with 8 kills, saves the game. You can see me in chat there saying, oh my god, my defense wasn't for nothing. I have really good defensive stands like that way more often than I should. And 9 out of 10 of them amount to nothing more than me being the top experience and damage player on my team in a defeat. Half the time I do more damage and get more experience than almost the entire enemy team, because I end up going something like 2 against 9 or 1 against 7, and a lot of the time I'll take down 4 of them and leave the other 3 on 50 health. Stuff like that. It's pretty common. but my team will still lose the game when there were 14 of them engaging, 6. Stuff like that. It's incredibly frustrating. So watching Spirit 1 with his ISU pull the game out of the gutters was just too much of a treat. It was just amazing. And I've got some post-battle results statistics that we'll bring in over here and take a quick look at. So first of all, you can see 115,852 credits. That's a pretty good game for the IS-6. And 34,806 credits, or experience. That was doubled for the first victory of the day. Pretty good experience as well. You can see that I dealt 403 damage and almost no detection damage because it was just such a close fight. And because pretty much everything that I detected, I also was the one who killed it. So, not a lot of detection damage. I will note that this is with a premium account, so I made a profit of 94,252. I will also note that 115,852 credits is a lot for a match with this thing, but in terms of like really big moneymaker games, it's really not that great. I don't get super moneymaker games that often, but it's not that. But when I do, I've pushed 140,000 before with this thing, so 116 is nothing to turn up your nose at, but it's not like a truly epic moneymaker or anything. Now you can see here, Spirit 1 with the top damage on our team, 4,834 and 8 kills. That was just amazing. He got 3 heroes of battle. I wish I'd noted what they were. 2 of them are... He got Top Gun and Bradley Walters medal. I'm not sure what the third one was. But, see, I came in second with 4,003 damage, only 1 kill, 1,162 on modified experience. After that, we had quite a few people that got 1,000 damage. We didn't have anybody on our team that did really more than 1,500. The T-32 got 1,600, so I guess that's more. But basically, this was a match where we had nothing. One very, very, very crucial shot. Nothing. Meh. Great. Basically, this was the story of Spirit 1 and me killing the entire enemy team. Now, if you look at the enemy team, what's kind of interesting is they were sort of in the same boat. Their T-34 had a good game. Their Type 59 had a pretty decent game. Their Hummel had a decent game. For a stock Tiger 2, this is actually a pretty decent game. And then everybody else did bad. So, if you'd replaced Spirit 1 with an average player, our team probably would have lost. If you'd replaced me with an average player, our team probably would have lost. But at the same time, they didn't really have too many standouts either. It was kind of an interesting match. And here you can see 14 shots fired, 13 hits, 13 penetrations. With the IS-6, having all your hits penetrate is pretty good. One of my penetrating hits was a critical on the Type 59, but all the rest were like legitimate penetrating hits, and that was due largely in part to the Lerva and Tiger 2 on the enemy teams just saying that they didn't want to use their armor and presenting me with their perfectly flat sides. If those two guys had angled, especially the Tiger 2, if the Tiger 2 had angled, I would have had a hard time damaging him at all. The T-32 would have had a hard time as well. Not as hard as, it would have been easier for him, but still would have been a tough shot. Both of us against the Lerva, even angled at that close range, wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But still, just because the enemy team can probably penetrate your properly angled armor, doesn't mean you should just write your armor off entirely and just say that you're going to waste it. That was just really bad play by both of them, and it essentially allowed me to farm them. So you can see I only received 10 hits for a potential damage of 3,340, but when you tank more than double your tank's HP, that's pretty good. So there you go. I think that was a pretty successful match for the IS-6. This one's being shown more due to the fact that who actually pulled it out at the end, thanks to Spirit One, and less because it was just an absolutely awesome match. But again, it's always nice that when you fight the good fight, even though you lose and everything looks like it's going to be a defeat, it's always nice to see the W come out of it. So, thanks to Spirit One for the epic save, and that's all for now. This is Captain Dorja. Just remember, guys, you can never have enough big guns.